my first day of law school, I'll never forget the first thing the professor said. When you're in a trial, if you have the facts, if the facts are on your side, pound the facts. If you have the law's on your side, pound the law. And if you have neither, pound the table. Now, our case, the defense case, Officer Collins' case, is just the facts. I'm here today to tell you what the facts are and why those facts will lead to a not guilty verdict. But Mr. Osserer, in closing arguments, will tell you about the law. All right? Now, the extent to which the state's case is just pounding the table, I'll let you decide. Or maybe it's pounding a square peg into a round hole. Not bringing in certain witnesses, picking and choosing, hiring the out-of-state police brutality team to come on in at top dollar to try to prove a serious crime. But the facts are there, and I tend to pound the facts. This is a murder case and a manslaughter case, and my client has been charged with both of those things. And we know that Mr. Ellis was high on methamphetamine on March 3rd. We know he had 2,400 nanograms per milliliter in his blood. And the degree to which that affected his behavior is highly relevant in understanding who he was on that night and what these officers were faced with on March 3rd of 2020. That's Officer Collins. You know him, you've seen him, you've been watching him in court. I'll tell you, Officer Collins, my client, Mr. Osserer's client, is excited to talk to you. He's expressed to me a number of times how frustrating it is to be on trial and have to listen to your dumb lawyers talk the whole time instead of being able to get up and tell the jury what happened, why you did what you did. So he's excited to talk to you, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about him until he has a chance to take the stand. Now, as I mentioned, officers gave statements. Officers have Fifth Amendment rights. They did not have to give a statement. They know as police officers, when you give a statement, the risk is, if the evidence comes out and it's inconsistent with your statement, that you're now locked in and you're going to look to be untruthful if somebody contradicts your statement.
Overruled. You may continue.
But they voluntarily gave statements. And ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing in the video evidence that's inconsistent with those statements that these officers gave voluntarily. In fact, Mr. Osserer walked through with Officer Collins and his statement, the video, and how play by play he described his interactions with Mr. Ellis. They did it only a few days after, when they knew, as you would expect, police officers would know, that there would be doorbell cameras and Arlo cameras and passersby with cell phones recording the incident. And there is no video evidence that contradicts their version of what happened. And then we've all seen this from Ms. McDowell. Wait till I'm in the stands, I'm lying to shut you all down. This witness, her testimony and her timeline is totally inconsistent with Ayanna Malang. It's totally inconsistent with the officer's statements, and it's totally inconsistent with logic. When you look at the facts, you see a person, Mr. Ellis, who had methamphetamine in his system, and not only at a lethal rate, but a toxic rate. The suggestion that he was just walking down the street, listening to music, observing nature on 96 and Ainsworth, and that these cops just decided to jump out of their cars and start wailing on him.
Objection, argument.
Versus the suggestion that being that high on meth, he was out in the middle of the street causing a disturbance, and that because he was on conditions of release and not to be using methamphetamine, he decided to attack the police. Use your common sense, folks, in evaluating the evidence in this case. What's more likely? So this is a murder and manslaughter case, and so the manner of death is important. And I'm not going to get into the law, but the state does have to prove that these officers killed Mr. Ellis. And that's why Dr. Clark's testimony has been so significant. And that's why his initial report is so significant. Dr. Clark testified that there were no anatomical findings in this death. Mr. Ellis didn't have any anatomical signs to lead to a conclusion as to how he died. And he said the meth concentration is well within the fatal range and could have caused Mr. Ellis's death immediately. He said the placement of the spit mask is a significant factor and possibly the most important factor. And as you know, none of these officers had anything to do with the spit mask. He stated, "It is unlikely this death would have occurred due to the physical restraint alone without the contributing conditions of meth intoxication and a dilated heart." He said, furthermore, an argument could be made that the extremely high methamphetamine concentration should be considered the primary factor.